Hi and welcome to this look at this monstrous pile of stuff got free off a local ad just last week, I think it was. So yeah, I've been eyeing this thing for a while and I wasn't quite sure because some of these things are clearly in a state from the photograph, which we'll find out momentarily, but I couldn't say no in the end. So this literally filled my car to the point where I could barely drive, and there are some real gems in here. So what we're going to do is going to take a very quick look at each one in turn, and then over the next few videos we'll see if we can resurrect any of them. Hopefully get a few good machines out of it. So beginning with some of the less interesting stuff, this is a network scanner, a thing I'd hoped it was going to be an inkjet printer when I first saw it, because they'd be fun to play around with, but no, it's a network scanner. So you can scan something and it will send it wirelessly to another machine in another room. It came with some documentation. You can see it's soaked. All of this stuff was stored in a shed, and the shed leaked, and they all got various states of water damage and stuff on them, so that user guide is wrecked. We've got the driver disk here. I'm not going to go into this right now, but it might be a fun thing to play around in the future. I'm thinking for things like making videos, it might be handy to have downstairs and scan things like magazine articles out of some of the old mags about retro stuff, and then beam them straight up here so I don't have to go Googling. Next up, there were a couple of network switches. So these things are kind of a dime a dozen. These ones were probably fairly good ones in the day, but they've got a fair bit of water damage on them as well. To be honest, you know, I'm probably planning on building a little network shortly with that IBM server I did in the last video, but probably won't be needing anything quite as big as this anyway, so I might clean them up and see if I can get them working, but not really terribly useful. And then next up, there were some monitors, including this beast here. So this is like, I think it's 21 inch, measured at just under 20 inches. So I think it probably classes as 21 inch. It's a nice monitor with some BNC connections on the back. This one, this cute little thing's actually an IBM monitor, but it takes a proprietary power supply. So it might be worth getting this one up and running at some point in the future. And then the thing to the right of it is just a Philips TV monitor combo, which it's a bit rusty around the bottom. I'll probably take that one to the scrap heap. Even this IBM's got some work to be done, as you can see. So before we get to the computers, we'll take a very quick look at this big beast of a monitor, because this thing's going to be great for playing games on. I don't know how it'll look with some low res DOS games, but it'll certainly be great for some Windows 98 and XP gaming. And yeah, the tape measure comes in at about 20 inches. I don't know if that classes as 21, but it's a big beast either way, whether it's a 19 or a 21, and you know, it's supposed to be a fairly top-notch monitor. So I'm not going to go into it too much, just going to have a quick power up and see if we can get a picture on it. And yes, we can. So look at that. So even if none of these other PCs are recoverable, that is my, well, it was free. I was going to say it was my money's worth right there, but it was free, and that's a great find, I think. So better move on. Got a lot to get through. As I said, it's just going to be a quick look at each thing. So on to the interesting bit, which is the PCs. And first up, we've got this Hewlett-Packard. So this is a pretty nice machine, apart from the fact that the power button's missing off the front, and the guy removed every hard drive, so none of these things have hard drives in them, but apart from that, it seems original. There isn't really much damage on this. It's in great nick, so it's a real shame about that power button, but we'll take a quick look inside and see what we got. So it looks pretty clean, and you know, I don't know, like if I could live without that power button, but who knows, maybe I'll get one. It's got a graphics card, so we'll have a quick look at the graphics card on the processor. And it's a passively cooled Radeon 9200, so nothing terribly exciting, but yeah, it's another card. I don't have one of these in my collection, probably because I've never had the need for one, but I've got one now. Other card, and there's a modem. Don't really care about that, so let's get the CPU out and see what we've got. And it's an Athlon XP 2800, so it's alright. It's just a mid-range kind of family machine. Don't think that's the original HP power supply. It's one of those horrible gold things. I've got a few of those elsewhere. I don't think they're the best things in the world. So that's that. The first machine. I might make something of it. Might be worth, I was thinking I might just scavenge the parts from this, but I might see, who knows, if I can find another power button. I think I'll be happy to keep it. Next up, we've got something a bit more industrial, some kind of rack server. You can see this one's got a little bit rusty on the top from water dripping on it, but nothing too major, I don't think, and hopefully the insides will be okay. I never had one of these. Funky little lock on the front so that you can keep undesirables away from your floppy disk or your hard drive and the power switches, so they don't switch it off when it's doing something important. Might make an interesting little project for some kind of weird semi-industrial gaming machine or something. And the lid wasn't secured and it just popped off, and look at that, straight away 2 slot 1 processors. So it's a dual slot 1 machine, which is very, very cool. I'll have to take a look and see what they are. There's some kind of graphics card in there as well. So yeah, it looks like 2 Pentium 3 600s, 2 slot 1 Pentium 3 600s. That's pretty funky. Got a couple of boards, dual processor boards, but I've never really managed to get them up and running properly, so hopefully this thing will work. I had to wait a day to get the graphics card out because you need a very small right angled screwdriver to get it out. No sort of access from the side panel, which I thought was a bit stupid, but then I guess these things were made to stay put and not be messed about with or upgraded with voodoos or anything like that. So when the thing came, I could eventually get the card out, and it's quite an interesting one. It is from Chips, and it's an F65550 2 megabyte VGA card, so I'd be interested to see how fast this is with DOS games. So certainly some fun to be had with that one. I just hope it works, as I do with all of these things. I've no idea whether any of them survived the leak. Now, next up is a very interesting little thing. It's from Fujitsu Siemens, and it's called a multi-tainer. I guess that's how it's pronounced. So this thing precedes the sort of HTPC craze with Windows XP Media Center and all that kind of stuff. This actually was designed for Windows 98, but was designed to do the same thing. So it was designed to sort of sit in your living room, play DVDs and your music and all that kind of thing. It's got an LED display on the front and some sort of controls that you wouldn't normally see on a PC. So it seems to have survived the water reasonably well at a glance. It does need a clean up. There is a little bit of rust around some of the connectors and things like that. It's got more sort of multimedia centric things on the back, though it's got a joystick port on the front and things like that, so it's designed very much for entertainment. It'll be fun to try and get it back into its original state if it works. Lifting the lid, you can see straight away there's a lot of proprietary things going on in here. There's all sorts of weird connections behind that LED display on the front, so I'm not quite sure how that works, so if indeed I'll be able to get drivers for it. Some weird kind of riser in the middle of the machine, so no AGP or anything like that. It's not a gamer, and when you pop the processor out, it's a Celeron 733, so not a powerhouse in that department either. Be interesting to see if I can get it up and running. I'm gonna have to do a bit of research on this one, I think, but interesting. Not got anything like it. Next up, some fairly generic early millennium silver and black box. I guess this was the guy's daughter's PC because it's got lots of little stickers of fairies and things on the front. Interestingly, the guy who gave me this stuff was he was an embedded software engineer, so this is why he had all of this stuff. Self-employed, I think he was, which is why he had all the servers and things. So we'll get into it. I'm thinking straight away that this one might, well, at least the case will probably end up at the tip because there's panels missing and things, or drive bay covers, which I don't think I can get. And to be honest, it's not a very nice case. Hopefully there'll be something worth scavenging on the inside. No graphics card or anything on this one, so we've got a 2.66 gigahertz Celeron D, and hopefully this and the motherboard will be the things that I can keep out of this, and the memory. So after the first two, this one isn't terribly exciting, but hopefully there'll be some parts for my parts bin for spares or future builds. So next up, we've got something from Dell that I can see on the front of the box. So let's see what we've got on this one. So we get some info from the front. We can see that it's got a Pentium 3 in it because it's got a Pentium 3 sticker, assuming it's still inside, and it's a Dell Precision 220. And you can see from the side of the box that it's had some water damage, but this is a fairly thick case of plastic over the top of the metal frame, and so that's just got to be rust colored water that's stained that. Hopefully that will clean up. The case is toolless, though it's seized up a little bit. In the time it was in that shed, you just kind of push a button on the front and it's supposed to pop open, but it does take a bit of brute force. I think we need to put a bit of oil in there and get it working a bit smoother. There's a big green shroud around the CPUs, but we've got everything in here. We've got sound card, we've got a graphics card, and what looks like, yet again, two slot 1 CPUs. So it's another dual processor machine. Interesting to see what these ones might be. I guess it's 2 more Pentium 3s. Water has found its way in. There's a little bit of corrosion on the inside, but I don't think there's anything that can't be taken care of. So yes, it is definitely 2 Pentium 3s in there. I'm not going to go any further because this is a well-stacked machine. The graphics card blew me away. I was pretty pleased with the sound card, pretty pleased with the speed of the processors, and yeah, this is going to be an awesome machine to play with. So I'm not going to even tell you what's in it. I'm going to wait to expose all of that in the video when I actually get around to sort of taking care of the rust and seeing if it works. So next up, another rack server. So this one's a little bit different to the other one. There's no front door with a key. It's got 2 big fan grills on the side, and it's all black, and a bunch of funky lights and things on the front. So let's see what's inside. Opening the lid on this one, it's got some similarities to the other rack server we just looked at. So the riser is in the same place. The graphics card is exactly the same. Another chips 2 meg card. This one's in a bit of a worse state. Water seems to have gotten in. There's rust around the PSU fan. There's rust in the drive bay. From what I can see, the motherboard looks like it might have escaped anything. We'll just have to see when it comes to test this out whether or not it survived. But yeah, another dual processor machine. So this one kind of looks like it might be in the follow-up model to the other one we looked at. So when the Pentium 3 moved from socket 1 to slot 370, this is what you ended up with by the looks of it. And this one looks like it's got a couple of 1 gigahertz copper mine processors in it. So nice parts, even if we can't get it working again, but hopefully we can. So potentially I now have 3 working dual processor machines, if any of them work, which will be a first, so that'll be fun to play around with. So next up is a weird looking machine from NEC. So this one kind of looks like just trying to be an HTPC, but they've just stuck it in a desktop box. This one feels cheap and nasty, for want of a better expression. It's all very plasticky. I only think it was a Media Center thing because of media theme, which is written on the front, and it says for Windows XP, so I'm guessing it came with XP Media Center edition. It's immediately clear looking at this that this one's suffered from the leak in that guy's shed quite badly. There's a lot of rust on there and on the top of the case as well, so no expansion cards in there. You can see that straight away, but who knows what it's like inside. The lid was seized on tight, so I did have to take a large screwdriver to it, which doesn't bode well for what else might be seized up inside the machine. That's what happened when I took the CPU cooler off. I mean, what is it? It looks like a bird has taken a crap on it, for want of a better expression. That can't be thermal paste that's like boiled or anything, can it? I don't know. But anyway, you can see just from the fan as well behind it from the CPU that this machine's gonna need a lot of TLC if it's worth saving at all, but you know, we'll get to that when I make a video about it. I didn't even bother trying to clean it to find out what the CPU was. Best just to move this one silently to one side, and we'll get back to it later. I hope I'm not boring you. We're getting there, only a few more to go. And we'll start with this rusty monstrosity. So, looks like a custom build of some kind, but yeah, don't know whether that's rust in the case or whether it's just drops of rusty water. Yes, it is embedded in the metal of the case, so if I want to resurrect this case, it's not a bad case. I might, but it would need taking back to the metal and priming and then finding a suitable beige to spray the whole thing with, so maybe. No expansion cards or anything exciting in here, but you can see water's gotten inside as well, so it'll be a big job. I don't know, maybe. But again, the motherboard doesn't look too bad, I don't think. It's just some dust and crud on the fan cowling on the CPU cooler. So maybe at least the parts might be... I wouldn't keep this all together even if I repaired the case. I would probably strip the parts out and use the case for something else, like painting up and doing a custom job on it or something like that. In fact, now that I think about it, I've been meaning to do kind of custom cases, maybe game themed cases, do a bit of funky artwork on them and stuff like that. Maybe some of these cases might be candidates for that kind of thing. But yeah, it looks like it's got AGP and it's got some memory. Let's see what the CPU is. So it's a Sempron. Not really sure if I'm terribly interested in that. Don't have any Semprons in my collection, so well, something new, I guess. So yeah, another rust monster, but I'm kind of thinking maybe I'll do something with the case, but I'll certainly harvest the parts for other builds, maybe. On to the next machine. So this one doesn't look too bad on the outside, and I think this one might be worth attempting to save. I just say that because it's a nice sort of OEM machine from a company called EI Systems, who I've never heard of, and everything's in kind of good nick. The case is just a little bit battered. It might need respraying because it's quite pockmarked, but respraying black, it probably just needs buffing up, and then overspraying would probably be enough. So apart from that, it looks like quite a smart little machine. Pentium 4, it says on the front, made for Windows XP. So we barely even need to take a look because we know what it's in there from the label if it's original. So it's the 3.06 gigahertz Pentium 4 with an SIS chipset, 651 is that, which I believe is a reasonable chipset, and there should be an AGP port in here, I think, a 1.5 volt one, so no older cards, but still not bad. So the lid comes off and I can see a graphics card. Yes, a graphics card looks okay, this machine. So as I said, because it's quite nice, apart from just a bit of marking on the outside of the case, a little bit on the base of the case. There's no major rust on this one, and it's just a nice, cute little sort of OEM system, and I'd like to restore it. So I guess everything is as it should be in here. We'll take a quick look at the CPU and then a quick look at the GPU. So we'll get the CPU out, and sure enough, as it said on the sticker on the front, a 3.06 Pentium 4. So cool. So yeah, I can see it's a Sapphire card because it's got one of those funky coolers, but like the Dell, I'm going to save this grand reveal in its own video. Okay, we'll get that one put away. Only 2 more machines to go, you'd be pleased to know, so we're almost at the end of the video, and yeah, the next one's a good one. And this is the machine that made me actually contact the guy and decide that I actually wanted to collect these things, because what I initially saw was a pile of junk. It's turned out to be that there's quite a few potentially brilliant things in here, but this was the machine that actually made me want to go and collect it. It's from Time Computers, which is what drew my eye, because back in the mid to late 90s, Time were a huge thing here in the UK, along with Tiny. They were both owned by the same parent company. They both had kind of chains of shops in your local shopping arcade, and they were the kind of go-to for a lot of families. Neither of them had a great reputation for quality, but you would open the computer magazines back in those days, and the pages were just full of reviews of Time and adverts for Time, and reviews for Tiny and adverts for Tiny. So I've already got a nice tiny Pentium 3 and getting a Time as well. I never owned one back in the day because I wouldn't have been seen dead with one, but they just give me a warm glow because they were so kind of familiar back then. So I'm really glad to have one. But again, it's an interesting little machine, so I'm just going to close it up. I had a look at the CPU. There's no cards to speak of. There's quite a bit of rust inside that needs taken care of, but it's an interesting machine and a bit to talk about. So I'm going to put the lid back on it. I'm not going to tell you what the processor is. It's got potential, I'll just say that. I can tell you it won't be long because I'm already working on this one. I've already got it stripped down, cleared up the rust and all that kind of thing, and it will be the next video after this one. So this one should be out this weekend, and the following week should be this tiny machine's renovation and return to glory, hopefully. Hope it works, otherwise it might not appear, but I think I've got high hopes, and it's an interesting machine. So here we are, the last machine. There is one little other thing I'm going to show, but this is the last machine. And congratulations if you made it this far. You're to get a little badge for having the stamina. But hopefully it's been quite interesting because it's been lots of quick looks at lots of different stuff. So this is the last computer. It looks like a kind of custom build. Water has gotten into this machine. I can see that straight away. So not quite sure what we've got in there, but let's take a closer look and see what the CPU is. And there's a card or two in there as well to take a look at. So yes, this one isn't in great nick. You can see water has gotten in to quite an extent. So I've taken the CPU out, and we can see we've got an AMD Phenom of some description, and I'm not going to look it up or get into any details here. It'll get its own video when we decide on whether or not it's worth trying to do anything about saving the case and keeping it together, or whether it's just worth scavenging and checking that the motherboard and the processor work. The motherboard in this case, probably the only one out of all of these computers, has really, the water has gotten to it, almost like it was dripping down on top of the board. Don't know how deep that goes, whether or not it's just discolored water has landed on the board, or whether, you know, nasty corrosive shit has gotten into it and caused problems. But yeah, we'll find out when we get round to looking at the individual computer. So that draws the whole process to a conclusion. That was the last computer. I'm pretty excited because I've got a load of projects to do, and I don't even have to think about what to do for my next bunch of YouTube videos, probably for the rest of the year. So yeah, I hope if you enjoy watching these videos, you're as excited as I am. But yeah, it doesn't quite finish there, because there was one thing I totally forgot about until the last minute, which is this, which is a small Hewlett-Packard CRT that also came with it, which I stuck in a corner downstairs, and I forgot it was even part of the haul. But there you go, another CRT. I have so many CRTs now, I never thought I'd say that. I'm glad I've got them, because they will start dying sooner or later. So there you have it. I just thought I'd make a video about these as a whole, because it's not often you come across a pile of stuff like this. I've had a few hauls over the last couple of years, usually like 2, 3, maybe 4 machines max, a couple of machines in a monitor, but nothing quite as mental as this. So like, as I said, there's a lot here. And not only that, I didn't think there was going to be any cool stuff when I went and got this. I really went for that Time machine in the middle there, but there is a lot of cool stuff in this thing. I'm going to have great fun with those rack servers. I'm going to really enjoy trying to get that Fujitsu Media Center thingy up and running again. The Dell is just going to be an awesome machine if that gets working again. I'd like to get that OEM machine. I can't even remember what it's called, the i something or other. But yeah, there's lots to do, lots of potential things to save here, and I like saving stuff, so I'm going to try and save as many as I can, and at least harvest as many parts as I can. But first off the stack was the Time machine, which made me go and get it in the first place. So as I said before, that is pretty much done. all of the cases cleaned and rust free hopefully now. I did all of that last weekend, so hopefully this weekend I'll get it all rebuilt and finish off filming that, and that will be the next video after this one. So I hope you'll join me for that and see the first of potential fruits of that collection of all of that stuff, and hopefully we'll get at least one nice little machine out of that. We've already got a nice big monitor to try out games once we get this thing working. So thanks for watching if you got this far, and I hope you'll join me to see how this time machine pans out, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks again, I'll see you later.